Well, thank you for making it out here, and it's good to see everyone and meet everyone. So this evening I'll talk about this idea of sustainable SharePoint adoption. Just a quick background for those that I haven't met. My name is Dux, and yes, that's my real name. If you're calling me Dux, I had a hard time growing up a bit. I got my ducks in a row. It's all good. But this is something I've been working on and working with in the last couple of years. I've been working with SharePoint since 2000. And my company, Innovative E, we're based out of DC and Atlanta. One of the key things we focus on is helping organizations drive sustainable adoption. And that's near and dear to my heart, and that's why I'm here as well. I'm actually working with a customer. There are 100,000 people worldwide, and we put together a 12-month sustainable adoption program. So it's exciting, and a lot of what I'm doing with them, I'll share with you tonight. Okay? So just a quick background. Let's see. So again, I'm Dux. I'm with Innovative E, and I wrote the book SharePoint for Project Management. It was the very first business-focused book. Yes, ma'am.
I just have to share with you that Jim let me know there was another users group meeting. I read the thing and signed up maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And we're just in the throes of getting started on SharePoint 365, and one of the gals I'm working with said, oh, I have a book at home about project management. So she brought it in and she said, here's this. And so I'm starting to read it over the weekend and I'm like, wow, this is really good. Where have we seen that D2X speaker?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, it's coming.
Thank you for contributing 80 cents to my son's college fund. But tell you what, for being here, I appreciate you guys being here. I'll make sure everybody gets a free ebook copy. I'll get a code from my publisher and I'll send it to you.
Awesome.
All right. So I wrote the very first business-focused book around SharePoint. One of the things back then, what's so ironic is this was back in, this is a new edition. I wrote 2007 as well. It was about 2003, 2004. I was running a project management office and I was working in Atlanta. And one of the hard things is the #1 project management tool today, even today, is email. Right? You want to admit it or not, it's email. While Microsoft has tools like Project and Project Server, it's too much for a lot of people. There's no in-between. But guess what? SharePoint was a great in-between. At that time, I put together a little framework, a little solution for my customers, and they're like, this is great. Is there a book for this? I don't think so. Why don't you write a book? So I hit up O'Reilly, and rest is history. But since then, that was a key focus of mine in my company. Again, how do you drive business value out of SharePoint? So let's get the conversation started around this concept or this idea of sustainable adoption. You know, a lot of us have SharePoint already. So just a quick poll. Who started with SharePoint 2003? Okay, there you go. Today, what do you guys have in your company?
2013, 2010.
Wow, all right.
I work for a consulting firm, so I have clients.
Oh, you got across the board. All right. How about you, man?
We're going to SharePoint online.
Oh, Office 365, right? How big is the organization?
Right now, there's 20 of us.
Okay.
But we're a new insurance company, so a year from now, there'll be about 40.
Okay, good, good. Anybody at CERT, how big is your company?
I work with Heavy Air since 2000.
Okay, and what platform, what version are you using? 2010, okay. So one of the interesting things is I work with a lot of customers, large and medium and small, and one of the things is this big pain, right? SharePoint, 80%, and Joe can correct me, 80% of global deployments based on a survey done by AIN is nothing more than a big file
I call it June.
Now, what's interesting is I find it very analogous to children. I have 2 kids. My son is 7, my daughter is 3. And my daughter, Danica, in certain instances, I get frustrated with her because I buy her a new toy, and I hear Danica, kids love toys, right? But she starts opening it up, starts playing. She doesn't read the instruction manual. 3-year-olds, And she gets mad after 10 minutes because she can't figure it out, and then what? She drops it. She moves on to her ultimates. Why won't this fit? Right? Does that sound familiar? I thought SharePoint's the next best thing to sliced bread. SharePoint sucks. Do you have people saying SharePoint sucks? Well, here's a tip for you. And you go back tomorrow to work and you see them and they look at it and say SharePoint sucks, this is what you tell them. I guess my mouse doesn't work. SharePoint doesn't suck, you suck. It's a freaking tool. Right? You're a tool, Ducks. It's a tool. And while we may find that humorous, it's a problem today. You know, a lot of us equate adoption to training. That's not right. That's not complete. While training is a part of adoption, training alone is not enough. A lot of training we find today is so technology focused. And that's a big disconnect. I was in a breakfast meeting with executives in DC. And after my presentation, I was talking about the business value of SharePoint. One of the VP of a large company in DC walked up to me and said, Ducks, we had SharePoint for 10 years already, or not 8 years, they started with 2003, but it's only today that I realize how powerful this thing is. Can you come to corporate and do the same presentation to all the VPs? I go, sure. A few weeks later, I came to the meeting. They invited the IT person as well, the IT director. I did my same presentation. After I did that, one of the VPs talked to the IT director and says, why weren't IT able to communicate the same thing Ducks did? We've got this thing for 8 years and nobody likes it. The IT director goes, but we have end user training, we have power user, we got, site admin training. Then the other VP goes, what's power user? What does that have anything to do with marketing? I don't, y'all with me? And that's what we do. That's what organizations do. Oh, you're an end user? Here's end user. Oh, you're a site admin? Watch these videos. Well, that's important. That's useful. That's not the first thing that people should be exposed to. Because a lot of training we have out there is non-contextual. These days the big buzz with Microsoft is social. Social this, social that. It's great. There's value. I had a great question. I was in another presentation with a Microsoft team and a bunch of customers. Somebody raised their hand. This is in DC again. So what does social mean to Miss Sally, who's 65 and she's going to retire in 2 years, and she processes invoices? Can you tell me? Spot on, right? Because unless people understand what's in it for me, it's a freaking tool. So, the other problem of just focusing on training alone is roles aren't clearly defined and specified. While we say you're a power user, you're a site admin, you're an end user, whatever, right? Okay. What does that mean in comparison to my responsibilities in my job? Is that part of my job, on top of my job? How long should I be doing it? Will I be compensated for it? How does it measure against my performance evaluation? Blah, 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 blah. Y'all with me? We don't think about those things. And then the age-old question, what's in it for me? So what am I proposing here? I'm proposing a different way of looking at adoption. And a lot of the things we've been doing or thinking about doing is still valid, but I wanted to shift it a bit, right? I want you to think about this concept of sustainable SharePoint adoption. If there's 2 words you remember tonight, or 3 words, sustainable SharePoint adoption. That's all I want you to think about. Because a lot of times we think of adoption, again, as training and then we're done. How do you sustain that? How do you grow that? Because once you go SharePoint, it's a commitment for life. While we technologists are really good at figuring SharePoint out, well, that's not true with the business or our typical users. So what's the goal of sustainable SharePoint adoption? It's really threefold. First is you want to drive excitement. When I started using the word inspire, excitement, motivate, a lot of IT folks were, what? We don't use those words. Well, you should. You want to drive excitement and get people excited and motivated and see the value in this platform. Right? And I'll show you examples how you do that. That's the first goal. The second goal of sustainable SharePoint adoption is you want to facilitate change. I mean, you get people excited for no reason. There's no point. Are they doing their job faster, better, more efficient? Am I saving more time? Is the company increasing productivity, hence reducing costs or saving money? Or is, it has to facilitate change. And last but not least, you have to empower people, not only that they can help themselves, but they can help their colleagues as well. Because the last thing you want, everybody calling IT for help. That's not what you want. So those are the three main goals of sustainable SharePoint adoption. Now, how do you do it? There's 4 phases to it to get there, right? So I'm going to share these 4 phases or 4 steps, and I'll show examples and talk about them as we go along. And by the way, if you have questions, raise your hand. Just let me know. So first phase, or first step. When you think about sustainable SharePoint adoption, first and foremost, you have to drive enterprise momentum, meaning you gotta get the check writers, the decision makers, and key business people on board. So, for example, the customer I'm working with, that's why I'm here, they've got SharePoint for a while, and they've just upgraded, so this is a good time to start this initiative. So one of the first things I did is I met with key leadership and key business people to make them understand and get what the platform is and what it means. Because as we all know, if the check writers aren't on board, it's hard. And they have to understand, they have to get the value of what SharePoint brings to the organization. And it's our job to do that. Now, how do you do it, Ducks? Well, here's an example. A few years ago, 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, it was about January, I got a call from a CIO of a law firm. He called me up, he said, Ducks, I saw you in the breakfast here in New York, and you talked about how SharePoint can be a great platform, help us save money, blah, blah, blah. Here's my situation. Our budget for this fiscal year has been cut by 30%, economy's bad, and IT still expected to deliver the same set of services and more to the business with fewer people and fewer resources. Now tell me how SharePoint can help us. I mean, that should sound familiar, right? That's the kind of conversation you want to engage with decision makers. It's not an easy conversation, but that's what you want to get into. The last thing you do is you show up in a decision maker, hey, look at 2013, look at all these nice dashboards, look at Yammer. Well, they'll be dazzled by it. That's not the conversation you want. So what happened to that executive? So I said, yeah, we can certainly do that. Well, let's do this, Mr. CIO. I want to prove to you that SharePoint can deliver your needs with lower budget, but let's do it in a low-risk approach. So what I want to do is I want to take a snapshot of your business, of your day-to-day business activities. So do you guys do meetings? Lawyers, do they do meetings? They go, of course. So I suspect the only way they do meetings is they fire up Outlook, send an invite, put attachments, send it to 10 people, they do the meeting, and then once the meeting is done, action items fly back and forth via email and all this stuff, and everybody gets copied, right? He goes, yep, that's how we do it here in this law firm. I want you to audit everybody's email inbox, please. See how big they are. You go, okay, so he came back, he audited, the company was about 800 people. He came back on the average people's email inbox. This was 4 years ago, about 3 gigs. And I said, run an audit of how much of that stuff is copies of stuff, junk, forwarded stuff, half of it. Half of it were junk. Okay, here's what we're going to do, Mr. CIO. For this first exercise, we're going to change and improve, so to speak, how people manage meeting artifacts. We're going to tell the users that on this day onwards, whatever that day is, when you do meetings, instead of emailing stuff and all that, we're going to create a Meeting Central portal for you. Essentially, the feature I was thinking about and helping them with is meeting workspaces. It's out of the box. It's part of SharePoint. In fact, it was part of Windows SharePoint Services version 3. Integrates with Outlook nicely, all that good stuff. So we spent 3 weeks planning and all this, setting it up, and then we sent the message out. So with the help of that organization's corporate communicators, they sent out a little newsletter saying, we heard your complaints on how you guys get email managing meetings, blah, blah, blah. So here's a Meeting Central for you. And by the way, 3 months after we do this, we're going to cut down your email inbox to 500 megs. Okay. So they did training, 1 hour training. All they learned, really, is this thing called Meeting Central. We didn't talk about SharePoint, we said this will help facilitate your meetings better. So we went through that exercise. 2 months later, I came back after it, and everybody loves it because they can find stuff, they don't have to email stuff back and forth. It's more secure. But here's the cool part. The CIO came back to me and said, Dux, this is great. I mean, we put all these metrics together. You know, we decreased our email storage because we calculated the cost. It's not just storage. It's the person taking care of email, the resource. And then when they get audited by government, because they're a law firm, what does it cost to retrieve the backup, all that? So there's cost of that. So we did the math. But they reduced reliance on email storage and then the backup and then the retrieval. They use a lot of the meeting workspace capability in SharePoint. But here's the cool part. One thing we didn't talk about and think about was our bandwidth. I go, what are you talking about? He said, you know, before we had 3 T1 lines coming to corporate. You guys know T1? Because now people aren't attaching stuff all the time. These lawyers, they just love to send attachments. Imagine if a lawyer, if somebody attached 10 files and sent it to 10 people, that's 100 files. They're not doing that anymore. All of that were stored in this meeting workspace. They're just sending links. We dropped the other T1. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Y'all with me? I spent a lot of time talking about that because if you want to engage your decision makers, it has to come down to, are we saving money? Are we making money? Right? Are we improving how people work, facilitating engagement? And most importantly, what I urge you guys to think about is always start with the low-hanging fruit. While it's great if you start talking to them, oh, we're going to hook up SAP, CRM, Run DMC. That's too much money and that's high risk. Start with the low-hanging fruits, day-to-day things that can be perceived as low risk. We can do it quickly, doesn't cost a lot of time, money, effort, but it has a big bang. Because from that point onwards, you can build on it. Yeah? It's all about business value. Now, another story I love to share is, so I live and work in DC, and the U.S. State Department is one of the biggest SharePoint users out there. To my knowledge, publicly, they have, I think, 500,000 users or more. And when we look at this, you know, when I was doing this presentation in DC, they're like, well, Dux, money doesn't really matter to us. I mean, we're not, I mean, it does, but it doesn't. You know, what drives us are different things, right? We have different missions. So I heard this story of the State Department, which is pretty cool. So the State Department has a division called the State Department Security. Their job is to protect all the embassies around the world. Okay? They're like the security of all the embassies. And one of the things they do, especially during the peak of the terror threats, is every day these embassies send in an Excel report on what the terror threat level is. They fill out this form in Excel and then send it back to DC. And in DC, they take all this stuff and analyze what the terror threat level is. As you can imagine, all this is in Excel. It's not real time. It's all manual. You know, it takes a couple of days to put the report together. And sometimes it's a couple of days too late. The terror threat actually happened. Y'all with me? So they decided we have to build a more smart system. So they custom built some fancy system, which was great, and it worked, where all the embassies can go and put the threat level. They have this dashboard, which is great. The problem is it broke after 3 months, right? And IT had to fix it. One of the program managers in DC said, you know, we can't wait. This lives are at stake here, right? He said, let me try something. Again, this is a business user, it's not a programmer. He created a SharePoint site, created 10 custom lists for 10 different embassies in South America. He wanted to pilot this. And he piloted for 3 months. He said, so instead of Excel, fill out these custom lists. Looks like a form or whatever. And on the home page, he used a content query web part to roll up the data. You open your content query, you can aggregate data. On the second month, he saw a pattern. They were able to avert a terror threat. I mean, I get goosebumps on that story. Imagine out-of-the-box SharePoint saved lives. Huge. Another story you might not be aware of, CDC is another big SharePoint user. They have a project now, which is pretty cool. They're building a pretty much epidemic forecasting dashboard where they're tapping into every thermal cameras in international airports around the world. You guys know that? You know, when you go to different countries, or even here, they have this camera, and you might think it's a security camera, but it's not. It's monitoring your temperature. Because they want to see, and you know, all the data goes to like a CSV file. There's and then gets an XML file gets sent to CDC. There's a feed. So what they're doing is they're taking all these feeds, putting it in the SharePoint dashboard, so they can see if there's an epidemic that's going to happen. Is that cool? We worry about sharing files. So what I've just described, when you want to engage key decision makers, you want to identify solutions. That's how you drive enterprise momentum. Don't showcase features. Because that's what, again, what a lot of technologists do, and I'm guilty of this too. Hey, look at SharePoint 2013, nice fancy car. For the first 10 minutes, people ooh-ah at it, and then they'll scratch their head. I just learned how to ride a bike yesterday. I don't have time for this. I'll leave this in the garage, dump all my files there. I ride my bike to work, email and Excel, because that works. No, we got to identify solutions. Think about business use cases. So I recorded a little video. I want to show you a typical use case around project management. And this is just using 2013 suite of products. And see how this can be communicated well to your business users. Let me play the video. Let me come back to you.
Meet my colleague Alex. He and I are working on putting together a presentation for our boss. Thanks to SharePoint 2013, we're able to easily centralize and manage all related artifacts and communications for this project. On a typical day, Alex would start working from home using his Mac. He would check his email from a browser and start work from there. Looks like Alex is reviewing the tasks of the project, and he has some questions for me about the project. Just by using the browser, he's able to instant message me using technologies like Link. One of the key benefits of SharePoint 2013 is a deep integration with existing tools that we already use, like Microsoft Office, smartphones, and even web-based technologies. So even if I'm out and about, I'm still not at the office yet, I can easily respond to Alex on my phone and update my tasks. The beauty with SharePoint 2013 is that I can continue working with Alex once I get to the office. You just assign me a task on the project site, and look at what happens. It automatically shows up on my task list in Microsoft Outlook. Isn't that cool, or what? Additionally, within Outlook, I can email the entire team directly using this neat feature called Site Mailbox. The Site Mailbox is available not only in Outlook, but it's the same Site Mailbox that the team can see and interact with directly on the project site. The Site Mailbox also provides visibility to all the documents I have in the project site. So what do you think? Are you excited? I am. This is the new way to work together with SharePoint 2013.
So the point being here is, you know, when you want to drive enterprise engagement, executive engagement, you got to involve key stakeholders. So the way you look at it is you identify business needs, think about their day-to-day activities. So again, for example, the customer I'm working with this week, first thing we did to get all this going is I talked to key business people. You know, I sent out a survey. I asked them very fundamental questions. I said, number one, what are some of your day-to-day pain points? Pain in the neck type of business processes or activities that you deal with. So I gave them examples. So for example, you got to fill out this form, that piece of Word document, that website with all the same data. And they fill that out. And I asked them, what are the tools they use commonly? So you start the conversation based around your world, right? And then also look at how they do things currently. And this is one of the big things. You know, I see a lot of organizations when they approach training around SharePoint or adoption. Okay, open your browser, go to our portal, here's a SharePoint site, here's a list, here's a library. Well, that's cool. It's not going to stick. Because the hardest part about all this is change. You guys remember when email first hit the big time in the mid-90s? You know, I remember a customer, I emailed him. When he got the email, he printed it with a pen, wrote the response, and faxed it back to me. Right? It's a big change. That's no different than what we do today. Hey, docs, I've uploaded the document to the shared documents library. Here's the link. Oh, by the way, I've attached it too, just in case. Yeah, I'm talking about you. So my point being is, you got to look at what they do today, and more importantly, listen, this is important. If you can use the tools that they use today along with SharePoint. You know, the way I recommend introducing SharePoint to first-timers, it's not even using the word SharePoint. Start with Outlook. Start with Excel. Start with Word. You know the two killer apps in the enterprise today is email and Excel. People can't live without them. Not SharePoint. And that's where we want to get to. We want to get to a place where people think of SharePoint as an essential day-to-day, I can't live without business tool. You know, the way people think of SharePoint today, it's either, I'm going to dump all the files there, or, I don't like how it looks. Make it not look like SharePoint. Y'all with me? Do you get people telling you, I don't like how Outlook looks. Can you change how Outlook looks? That's dumb. People don't think about that. Because Outlook, they just email. Word, they just write their documents. Nobody tells you change how Word looks. Now, I get that. SharePoint can be used as a public-facing site, but an internal collaborative platform doesn't look bad. Right? So you want to shift that. So let me give you another example. So here's another example, right? Let me bring up my Windows environment here real quick. Okay, so here. So this is that same project site on that video. This is on 2013. And we were working with a customer. In fact, let me go to the homepage. We're working with a customer, and they had SharePoint for a while. And one of the things we found out, again, low-hanging fruit, quick win, is that they have 100 projects at any given point in time. And their projects were managed by email, Excel, network share. That should sound familiar to you. So we said, look, one of the first things you can do is use SharePoint for project management. By the way, there's a great book. You should buy it.
Great book.
That's right. Now, so we helped them. We shaped the solution. We provided guidance and training. So now the idea of having one-stop shop, voila, every project has a project site. All the related artifacts are there. And one of the things we found out is at the end of the month, every project manager would send an Excel file for all the expenses of the project to Miss Sally in accounting. Right? So Miss Sally, every month we get 100 Excel files from her email, just put it on her desktop, collate them, put together a summary report of monthly project expense summary. You know Miss Sally? So I talked to Miss Sally, I said, Miss Sally, how much time and effort do you have to deal with this process? Oh, Doc, so I spend about 7 hours a month total doing all this, just getting stuff together and calling people. And I've been doing it for 8 years. It's part of my job. I go, Sally, what if I can tell you I can cut that down into half? I'm going to help you with it. Instead of 7 hours, maybe 3 or 4 hours, tops. Would you be interested? She goes, of course, but what, Miss Sally? As long as I don't have to learn anything new, as long as I can only do it in Excel, I'm all for it, because I'm retiring in 2 years. Now you know Miss Sally, right? Those accounting. I go, great news, Miss Sally. I'm not even going to teach you anything new. I'm going to teach you a feature in Excel. Really? Yeah. So here's what we're going to do, Miss Sally. Instead of project managers emailing you, we're going to tell them to put all their expenses in the project site, because everything's there already in the spirit of one-stop shop. And then, as soon as they put their expenses here, automatically it will show up on an Excel file on your desktop, on my documents folder. Would you like that? No more of that email stuff. Yeah. Okay, so let me show you. So I said, so Miss Sally, here's what we're going to do. Let's fire up Excel. So let's create a new spreadsheet. And all this is out of the box. I'm not custom coding or I'm not buying any third-party product. So let's say we bought Projector for $500. We bought, I don't know, a computer for $800 for the project. Okay. And then let's change this column to currency to make it appropriate and correct. Okay, good. All right. Oh, sorry. Let me put in the right column here. $800. Okay, and then Miss Sally, what we're going to do is we're going to take this information and then publish it out to that SharePoint site. Okay. So I'm going to convert it to an Excel table. Okay. And as soon as I do that, check this out. Publish and allow sync. So I'm going to take that information and instead of typing the address of the website or the SharePoint site, I don't have time to type everything in. I might put the wrong address. I'll call this the Des Moines, Iowa project expenses, whatever. Expenses. So let me hit publish. So what's happening? So just by doing that in Excel, Excel's talking to that SharePoint site, logging me in, taking the information, creating a custom list, and keeping the connection open. Once that's done, I'm going to take that, view it, right? So when I view it, there's my project site, and there's the expense information. You see that? Now, what happens next? Well, my project manager, so let me shift to, yep, I'm using a Mac, get over it. That's Beauty 2013. So when I put in, let's say my project manager is a Mac user, or they're using their iPad, right? They go to the project site, and they want to enter in their expenses. If you don't notice what I'm doing here, this is huge. Datasheet view in Firefox on a Mac. As you may recall, Datasheet view is only available in IE. That's cool. Now, so as my project manager enters their expense in their project site, and if alerting is turned on, Miss Sally will be alerted, hey, Doc's the project manager, just entered his expense. Miss Sally can go to her Excel file on her desktop, just hit synchronize, and as soon as she does that, it's going to contact the custom list in the site, and voila, that piece of information is there. Y'all see that? She's looking at the receipts and invoices. You guys didn't buy a car, you bought carpet. And it's $500. Not only can she see it, but she can update the data and push it back out to the project site. And once she does that, let me hit refresh. That same piece of information is now updated. What am I talking about here? This is what I'm talking about delivering adoption on their terms. Miss Sally loves Excel, go for it. The project manager wants a Mac, go for it. The platform can take care of that. Now, you're thinking, well, Docs, bless your heart. By the way, on a side note, I'm originally from the Philippines. When I moved here, I lived in Atlanta. And I started hearing people saying, bless your heart. Man, people are nice here. And then a week later, I realized it's an excuse to be mean. See this little old lady, bless his heart, that kid's ugly. Docs, bless your heart. Well, all that's great, but it's in 2013. We don't have Office 2013 or SharePoint 2013 yet. Well, guess what? What I just showed you has been around since Excel 2003 and SharePoint 2003. Who doesn't know about it? It's those little things. Especially with your business users, boy, this is huge. Do you think it gets them excited? Absolutely. You know, what Miss Sally did after she created 99 other sheets and connected it to the 99 other project sites, she had a summary sheet. Now in Excel, you have a summary sheet in your workbook and pull all the data. She had pivot tables and graphs for her report. 3 months later, she calls me up. She goes, Docs, thank you. I don't spend 7 hours anymore to put all this stuff together. In fact, I didn't even have to do overtime this month. The last previous months, I had to do overtime to put this project expense report together. This month, I only spent 4 hours, and I think I could be better at it. You know, I had to review the receipts, but I have to deal with email, dropping this stuff. Now, think about ROI here. Miss Sally saved 2 hours. What's in it for her? She saved 2 hours. Great. What's in it for the company? We didn't have to pay her overtime. That's just one example. Think about the different use cases you may have. So Miss Sally, what are you doing now with the 2 hours you saved? I learned how to use Facebook. That's a different problem, right? But friends, this is what I want you to think about. When you want to pitch or sell the value of SharePoint so people will love it, embrace it, adopt it, don't go out there and say, here's a site where you can share files with. I never talk about dumping files in SharePoint. Because if you start saying that, you're undermining the power and the value of the platform. That's number one. Don't ever talk about sharing files on SharePoint. It's just there. Number two, if you want to pitch the value of SharePoint, don't begin with pitching the browser. Pitch it from the Office perspective. Outlook, Excel, Word. That's huge for the users. The other aspect they have to keep in mind is you have to prioritize. You can't do it all. Once you get the business excited, everybody wants everything for nothing today. You can't support all of it, right? So how do you prioritize? Let me show you an example. So one of the key exercises I do, or my company does with a lot of organizations, is we help them build a strategic SharePoint roadmap, 12 to 18 months, especially if they have SharePoint already, on how they can reap the business benefits. But one of the big exercises we do is we prioritize and assess business needs and SharePoint features, right? So which master should we serve first? So here's a spreadsheet on how I do it. So this is a company with it's actually a government agency with 8,000 people. And one of the first things we do is I spend time with different business groups, not a lot of time, maybe an hour or two in a meeting. So I have operations, HR, finance, and then what you're looking at here is the different pain points that they have. Operations may tell them, hey docs, we have this process, SOP creation, it's so manual, we email people, we stick it into the network share. So as they're talking about that, I'm documenting the process, SOP creation, and kind of brainstorming on what feature in SharePoint I can take advantage of. So I'll call them CR, just some of the features, so I just quickly pick, as they describe. Accident report reviews, emergency communications, HR, has monthly metrics report, collaboration. So again, so you describe it, I tie it to a SharePoint capability. And then once the meeting's almost over, I ask them, okay, operations, if there's one thing I can help you with right now, or business issue you want to be addressed right now, what would that be? Oh, docs, accident report reviews. If we can improve that process, that would be great. HR might say, docs, this onboarding process, if we can automate that and improve that, that may decrease the number of new employees hanging out the hallway on their first day of work. Ever happened to you? First day of work, you have new employees hanging out the hallway because logins weren't created, phones weren't provisioned, because somebody dropped the ball on email. So I asked them, what's their priority? So after they do that, I analyze what all this means. So column A, this is the different business units, HR, operations, finance. And then on the next section, I list all the SharePoint features and capabilities that I've extracted based on their business needs. Y'all follow me? Why is this important? Now we can easily tie these things to a specific business need, and that's the biggest issue and challenge we face. I was advising a large company last year. They're going to upgrade to 2010. The IT lead said, "Tux, tell me what you think. For 2010, we built all these templates. We got team sites, wiki, surveys." I go, whoa, why? Dead silence, just like this. Makes me insecure as an immigrant. So I changed it up because I felt like my English wasn't good enough. I said, "Por qué?" What are you talking about? Why do you need a team site, a wiki, a survey? Why? I don't know. I mean, the business was asking for it. Isn't that the new social stuff? Wiki, newsfeed, likes, Yammer. Okay. What does that mean to Ms. Sally in accounting? If you cannot answer that fundamental question, why? Don't even do it. However, if I first ask them and talk to them about their business need, tie it to a SharePoint capability, now when I ask, why do we need these info path forms for HR? Oh, because it's going to help improve this process. Is that clear? So we don't have to worry about and scratch our heads, which feature do we roll out? I get all these questions all the time. Doc, SharePoint has gazillion features. Do we turn on my sites right away? Do we turn on Excel services? I don't know. Why? Once we extract the features and the business needs, we need to measure. How important is it? What's the business priority? 5 being very important. And almost always, list and libraries will always be a 5. Because you're going to use it almost always. What's the size and effort to configure or create these for HR? What do these numbers mean? I have a level of standardization I put here based on my team skill set. 1 is 20 hours, 2 is 3-person weeks. So for all the lists we need to build for HR, it's, I think this is 20 hours, whatever. Libraries, 20 hours. What's the business impact? 3, meaning it's a high impact, high value. It can mean it's going to help decrease costs, increase revenue, or improve productivity, whatever metric you want to put in. How reusable is this? 3, very reusable because we can templatize it. For example, every year when we do performance evaluation review, we can reuse that site or that template. What's the total business value of that feature? 9. We take the priority, the impact, the reusability minus the effort. It's a 9. That way we have a clear, quantifiable metric on how important a feature is to the business. It's a shame we don't do this today. The way we roll out SharePoint, we take a fast food approach. How do you like your SharePoint? Team site surveys, wikis, want to supersize it? Let's throw in BCX. Next! It's true, right? And what ends up happening? It's a big file dump. There's no context. Now, we're not done. Once I measure these, the goal is to prioritize. So I bring in the business, the key people I talked to earlier, and say, hey guys, this is what SharePoint means to your company. And by the way, telling the Windows admin, hey Windows admin, on top of your day job, you're not a SharePoint dude. I want you to roll out SharePoint in 3 weeks to 5,000 people. It just doesn't make sense. So let's figure out what we want to do now versus tomorrow. The other aspect of this is you want to measure what can IT do and cannot do. So column J, so while this is all great, the business value part, but let's do an IT reality check. What does it mean if if we roll out these lists for HR? It's a 1. It's 20 hours or 10 hours worth of effort because IT has to configure accounts, the server, whatever. What about the support impact? It's another 10 hours. What about training impact? Another 10 hours. It's a total impact of 3. So you keep measuring all these. And now you can engage in a conversation. HR might say, oh, we totally need that. It's a 9. But IT might say, well, it's a 3. It's above our budget for this fiscal year. We can't do it. Because a 3 might mean hiring somebody or getting another FTE, which we don't have. But this is a good negotiation piece. Because if HR understands and realizes this is something of value, IT can say, well, tell you what, we own the platform, we keep the lights up. Why don't you pony up? Either you train someone, you get a consultant, or we hire somebody part-time to build those solutions for you. Right? And don't be ashamed of it. And boy, after doing this for a couple of years, this is a great conversation piece to get the business and IT on board early on to say what we're going to do and not do. Now, you won't get an agreement, you get some sort of consensus. So based on that conversation, what do these colors mean? This is a 15-month rollout. First phase, second phase, third phase. With this, we produce a more formal roadmap prioritizing what we're going to do with SharePoint in this organization. And even better, and this will happen, will that change ducks? Absolutely. But if it does, if somebody comes along and say, I don't like how SharePoint looks, make it pretty. That's cool. Let's go back to your business need. I want to make sure the whole idea of making pretty is somewhere here. I don't see it here. Is it really a need? Oh, okay, no, not really. Oh yeah, because we have a major product launch, we need a public-facing site, it has to be pretty. Oh, okay. We put it here, we can prioritize. There's a baseline. Is this helpful? You guys want this spreadsheet?
Yes.
All right. $10 a download. No, just kidding. I have your contact. I'll make sure you get this and instructions. But I think this is very, very important. And even before you do anything, right, work with the business to prioritize what you're going to do and not do. You can't do it. I got to fess up. My name's written on ducks. It's Ducks L. My father's Dorel. My grandfather's Cal. I thought I could do it all with SharePoint. By the way, you like my movie?
Kind of dark.
Well, IT, I agree, is responsible for taking care of the platform, implementing, and keeping the lights on. You can't do it alone. IT has to engage with the business, not only to understand what needs there are. So like that whole Excel sheet, right? It takes a certain level of skill set to do that. For me, in our team, we have a couple of business analysts. We call them SharePoint business analysts. That they know SharePoint inside out, but more importantly, they know a lot of key business analysis strategy, so they can engage with the business and talk through what they're doing, what the gaps are, and how SharePoint can help. You need that individual. You need folks in your corporate communications, HR to help drive adoption, and then support and maintain adoption as well. Number 2, so after you have your enterprise buy-in, you get the business leaders on board, you prioritize, put your plan together for your sustainable adoption plan. Engage key business groups. And again, corporate communicators and your human resources folks would be very, very important. This is a big shift than what IT's used to. IT's used to, let's roll out SharePoint, let's give them training, we're done. No. You have to be strategic about this. From the get-go, work with corporate communicators. Why corporate communicators, Docs? Because they're really good at messaging, internally and externally as well. In fact, this initiative I'm working on with a customer here is I'm working with corporate communicators and IT, and they both love it. Helping them maximize their SharePoint investment. And the other aspect when you build your plan is you have to identify existing SharePoint resources that you can use and reuse. Again, I find a lot of organizations, they have a lot of resources already. Like in this organization, they have a lot of little videos around, create a list, upload a document, enable version history, which is cool. But the problem again is, as a user, what's the context? When do I create a list versus a library? When do I do check-in, check-out versus version history versus co-authoring, right? So the way I shape it, so tomorrow I'm going to meet with a couple of business users, is the way we're going to talk about it is business scenarios. We're going to talk about meetings, project management. We're going to talk about campaigns they do. We're going to talk about HR doing onboarding. So we talk about their day-to-day activities and then tie it to, well, I know you use email all the time. Wouldn't it be better if we do it this way? Yeah. So here are the nitty-gritty details. Here's how you create a list. Here's how you create a library. Y'all follow me? You need to connect all that. You got to look at what the governance strategy is. Now, I know this word has been used and overused and reused, and I think people look at governance in a very academic fashion. Because anybody you ask, they have a governance plan. Yeah, Docs, we have a governance plan. We downloaded a governance template from Microsoft, emailed it around, fill in the blanks. Boom, we've got governance. And nobody's adopting SharePoint. Well, the way I look at governance is it has to be relevant, it has to be meaningful to people. So for example, anybody read the Constitution of the United States cover to cover? Bless your heart. I haven't. I'm ashamed to admit it. I haven't. Now, why haven't I read it? It's cool. I feel proud that we have that, but it's not relevant. Y'all with me? And that's how people look at governance documents. Yeah, it's there, but do you think your users really read that? No. Now, what kind of governance am I familiar with? I know the governance around stop signs. If it's red, I stop. I know the governance on where to park and not to park. I know I have to pay my taxes by April 15th because that's near and dear to me. It's going to impact me or there's consequences. Right? And the biggest governance I follow all the time is with upper management. my wife, I have to be at home by 10 or 11 during work hours. So how do you translate that to your users? In your governance plan, there should always be a section of roles and responsibilities, and you put it in training as well. I'll send you an example. Essentially, when I do training, especially with site owners, there's a whole section on what's your role, what's your responsibility. As a site owner, make sure you look at the recycle bin every so often. As a site owner, you're responsible for managing permissions. And every quarter or every month, you'll meet with IT, because IT will audit your site, whatever. And that's relevant. Now, you also have to identify your SharePoint champions. Now, who are these people? These people are not necessarily site owners. To build your plan, you have to look at folks who can be great cheerleaders, especially if they're excited about this, because you need them. So a typical profile would be folks in HR, project management, and even your executive admins. Boy, I've been to a lot of organizations, and one of the big pain points is scheduling conference rooms. So I show executive admins on how to build conference room scheduling systems. Essentially, it's a SharePoint site with calendars attached to each conference room, little workflow, so people can request, approve, and you can track who requested the room, so no more people calling them up. Is this room available? Y'all with me? Because they do a lot of manual work and processes. So if you can help them get their job done better, faster, sooner, they'll be so excited. You need to identify them because they will be the ones to help you spread the good word of SharePoint. Establish support model. While you want to advocate for the growth and sustainability of adoption, one of the drawbacks is you always get a lot of questions and people need help. And the last thing you want is everybody calling IT and asking for simple things. How do I upload? How do I create a site? At the very least, create a 3-tiered support model where first and foremost is the self-service support, where either they can go to a learning portal or even contextual help. I'll show you an example in a second. Little quick, simple things. Or they can contact their site manager to help them. And then IT ideally would just address higher level support. If they need to do high-end complex solutions, integrating with different systems, so that's their role. Also, roll out a knowledge co-creation platform. And what that is, especially in tools like 2013, in 2013 there's this whole site template called communities, which is great. Because it's kind of like a wiki and discussion board, but more importantly, you can reward people. So if you have these types of communities, so let me show you an example here. So if I go to my intranet, so this is my company intranet, and we're in 2013. So there's a whole section of communities of interest. So what that is, it's a place where people can. Oh, sorry, something went wrong. Okay. Try one more thing. But it's a place where people can ask questions, other people can answer. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. But the idea is you can put together a site where, like, best practices, right? You can put together a section where if people help other people, they get rewarded. They get more likes. And you can say, if you get the most likes or you get this badge, you can claim it for a gift card to somewhere, right? So you can start thinking about doing that. Provide incentives. Also develop contextual user training as a part of planning. So my rule of thumb, if you want to create a site manager's training, no more than 4 hours. End user training, no more than 2 hours. That's just a rule of thumb. Okay? Now, training doesn't last in that 2 hours or 4 hours because really what we're going to talk about is you show them high level, but you also provide them all these resources on the periphery. Your videos, your portal, your knowledge co-creation. And that's where they're going to look up information when they need it. Step 3. So again, first we said make sure you have enterprise buy-in. Number 2, build a relevant, sustainable adoption plan. Number 3, roll it out, establish it. Okay? So here's an example of a company in UK on how they pitch SharePoint 2010 as their intranet. This is how they rolled it out. This is how they got everyone excited. So the company's called Van City. They created this video and they put it in their portal and anybody can watch it.
Hi, I'm Heather. I manage Insight. Over the last couple of months, I've spoken to many of you about the old Insight, and the consensus is unanimous. It's time to toss out the old and welcome something new. Let's face it, the old Insight makes for a hair-pulling experience. It's really frustrating. There are 3 things I really don't like about the old Insight. 1, it's hard to find information. 2, when you navigate through the site, it's very easy to get lost. 3, when you're looking for people, you can't find them on the old Insight. So I'm really excited to tell you that a new Insight will be coming to a screen near you in November. Want a sneak peek? 3 of my colleagues will tell you more.
Hi, I'm Morgan. I'm an account manager at the Dunbar Community Branch.
And I'm Viken. I'm a member service specialist at the MSC.
One of the new cool features is this dashboard. It's expandable, and you can use it to find all your tools, like PMP, job aids, calculators, general information that's going to help you serve our members better. And when you're done with it, click this little button, and it all goes away. And the rates dashboard works in the same way. It's the rates you use the most often. Another cool feature is the campaign carousel. It has all our member offers in one place, and it's not tucked away.
And if you're like me, you've probably created a whole slew of cheat sheets and workarounds just to avoid slogging through Insight. I'm really excited about the way New Insight pulls together all this information on one page. Let me show you. Everything we need is all right here. We can easily click on all the PMP, job aids, calculators that we need to do our job well. And what's also great is now we can see who the subject matter expert is for this page.
I'm Jane from the communications team. Another great thing about the new Insight is that it's going to give us all an opportunity to have a voice. The old Insight, it's kind of like a one-way street. Information goes out and then it kind of stops, but that's all going to change with the new Insight. We're going two-way, baby. Now we'll actually be able to talk to each other and have a conversation. Instead of just being like a catalog of information, Insight will be a community. And there's several different ways that you can participate. You can leave a comment, rate a story, or tag a page. We'll also get these cool things called My Sites. It's kind of like your own little piece of real estate online. You can do lots of different things on it. You can update your profile picture, you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can share some of your expertise. You can even update your status. There's also this nifty org chart that can really help you figure out the lay of the land. It can show you who reports to who and who's on which team. As you can see, I fit in right here, but eventually I'll probably be up here.
Well, we're all excited about the new Insight, and we hope you are too.
The new Insight will make it easier for us to find information, better serve our members and connect with our colleagues. We'd like to know what you think, so drop us a line.
Do you think that got people excited? Yeah. So they pitched that way before their training because they did an upgrade 2010, and they did a lot of custom branding. But yeah, they got people excited. It's not just okay, site manager training coming up, you have to take it. No, people would want to do it, and that's where engagement corporate communications are very important. So when you deliver training, make sure you make it engaging. Instructor-led if possible, make it short and sweet, and make sure you give homework. So one of the things that talk about engaging that I want to share with you, and I've done this before, is I've actually done SharePoint Jeopardy during training. So I group people into teams, and you know how people are so competitive in nature, right? And I said, you got to listen up, because at the end, when you're SharePoint Jeopardy, whoever gets the most points will we'll get this prize or be rewarded this way or not. So how did I do this? Let me show this to you. So let me fire a PowerPoint here. So I actually did it in PowerPoint. And by the way, if you guys want this, I can give this to you too. It's easy to do. I even have the background music playing in some instances. But yeah, so I do this. And people are still learning, right? So for example, I'll have Joe. Joe, why don't you pick a category and value here?
SharePoint doesn't suck for 100.
SharePoint doesn't suck for 100. This feature allows up to 4 people to edit a document at the same time. What is document co-authoring? Very good. And you can put the answer up if you click it and all this good stuff. And then let's give him a big round of applause. Good job. All right. It's engaging, and people are still learning. Right? So there's nothing to say that you can't do it. Now, what else? What other ideas do you have, Docs? So the other thing I've done before is this actually started with another customer. They're into a lot of they're actually into music. This customer a long time ago. So I came up with a crazy idea to do SharePoint karaoke. and I'm like I'm the Weird Al of SharePoint, and because of that, I have a bunch of songs after that. So the very first song I did was SharePoint Starts the Fire. So I actually had the music up and people singing, and I actually created a video of it too. So let me show you a couple of my fine performance out there. What happened here? Okay, so let's look at this. I have all the lyrics, I have the karaoke version, and I have a video of it too. So this is a video I produced a couple of years ago. So there's that. Let me show you a couple more. I had like 8 songs I already did. I've done it a bunch of times, and this was I did it at I was at a conference and
I'll need y'all's help.
You gotta shout out. And I had a couple of drinks. They called me up on stage.
Okay, let's do this. All right, stop. Collaborate and listen. Bounces back to my SharePoint Adventure project. Friends are holding me tight. This is nice, baby. SharePoint is nice.
And my my most recent work, let's see, this was at SharePoint conference, and I had a Gangnam Style flash mob. Here we go.
Open Gangnam Style.
So here's what I want to show you. So this you can look it up, but
Open Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Open Gangnam Style.
So in this session I had 1,000 people, about 800 of them stood up and danced with me. So what's my point? Again, learning has to be engaging and fun. So who says you can't dance, you can't sing? You could. Well, learn SharePoint as well, right? Another important thing when you implement these things is you have to have homework, post-training show and tell. A lot of us, when we go to a SharePoint training, you send our users to training, and we don't expect anything from them. Once they're done training, it's done. No. Give them homework. And again, you can make it fun. So as an example, so tomorrow, I'm gonna be with 80 key business people. We're gonna go through this workshop. But then they'll have a homework once they're done. So different groups from different business units, HR, legal, finance. They'll think about a SharePoint solution that they're going to do to improve one of their processes. And it'll be a 3-week period. If they need help, We put together a learning portal that they can look at videos and how-tos and whatnot. That's one. Number two is they have to document what they're doing. You talk about knowledge co-creation. They're going to say, hey, this week we're working on this. How do you do this? So somebody can not only answer them, but somebody can get other people can get ideas too of what they've been doing. Right? And then this whole thing, we call it SharePoint Idol. Because after 3 weeks, it's going to culminate to a SharePoint Idol competition. So their solutions will be recorded video, will be posted on the portal, people will like it. Whoever wins, right, based on the SharePoint Idol competition, check this out. They'll get 1 free day off. 1 free day off. You talk about motivation and engagement. Can you do that, docs? Why not? I mean, if your company allows for that, why not? And this is why you need to work with HR and corporate community. Last one. So, you get the business on board, you build your plan, you execute your plan. How do you grow it? To facilitate engagement, you have to create incentive programs. Giving people day off. Rewarding people if they get the most likes. Right? And I'm not saying you're going to do it forever. Typically, to sustain SharePoint adoption, it takes 12 to 18 months. Because you want to get to a point, like I told you, that SharePoint will be part of their day-to-day business tools like email or Excel. And that shift takes a while. You want to provide a way that they can help themselves. This is a tool I recommend and I use too. It's a tool called Visual SP. It's great. Anybody seen this tool or use this tool? So here's how it works. If you purchase and install this tool in your environment, every list or library would have a help tab. So if you're in a calendar list, it'll have a help tab. It'll say, oh, how do you add a calendar entry? How do you connect it to Outlook? Like a 30-second Outlook, a 30-second video would show. So when we talk about help, from a user perspective, they don't have to go to a portal or somewhere elsewhere. They can get help right there. Y'all with me? And that's one of the big challenges I hear a lot from users is, docs, I mean, yeah, I went to training, but I forgot all about it. It's not like I use SharePoint 24/7, and then I want to learn how to do this. Then I have to go to a training portal, which I don't remember where it is. Everybody with me? So if you can provide some self-service FAQ and informational tips, that would help. Establish regular adoption activities, lunch and learns, be physical, virtual. Work with corporate communicators to put out tip of the week. Why not create a user group within your organization if you're large enough, right? The State Department has their own SharePoint conference every year internally because they're just so huge. I was honored to be keynoting in one of their events. I was the only external people. We find this pretty cool. So I keynoted at the podium where it's their grand auditorium where the Secretary of State would speak, presidents, Churchill spoke there. So it's kind of cool. I stood in this podium. But what's interesting is when I was going there, they said, you can't bring your laptop, just bring USB to your presentation. It's all secure and all that stuff. I'm like, okay. So I went up to the podium 30 minutes before, they put it in, and my PowerPoint won't work. You go, what version did you use? I used 2010. Oh, we have PowerPoint 93. Not 93, 2003. 2003. Doesn't read PPTs. And I'm like, oh, okay, don't worry. You have a browser and internet? IE6 at least? They go, yeah. So I went to my site. So I put all my stuff in my site document library, so my presentation was there. Thanks to Office Web Apps, I ran my whole presentation, Office Web Apps, PowerPoint. But that was a really cool experience. So have your own internal groups if it warrants for it. Coach and mentor your champions and site managers, meet with them regularly, and provide them support because they're on the front lines. So those are just some of the high-level tips and ideas that hopefully you found helpful. Again, if you want to drive sustainable adoption, first, again, get your key business people, drive the momentum, make them get what this platform is about, prioritize what the business needs are, and then roll those out. Develop a plan how you're going to roll out sustainable adoption. Execute it, and then continuously nurture it and grow it, and then you work on the next thing. What do you guys think? Helpful? Good. And like I said, everything I showed you videos and spreadsheets. I'll make sure you get a copy of that. And before we end, I'd just like to share this story. So this is a newspaper clipping from the World Dragon Boat Championship Finals in 1995, I believe. You guys remember this sport, dragon boat rowing? It's big in Asia and in the coastal towns. It's like canoeing with like 22 people. So this is the Philippine dragon boat rowing team, and I was part of that team. That's me. I was the steersman, and my job is to keep the boat straight, because, you know, any variance from our path, it could cost a second or two, and we would lose. We won second, and I was cheering, because as soon as we finished the finish line, I thought we won first. And then we did. We lost to China by half of a second. Now, why am I showing this? Because just like what I taught you about sustainable adoption, it takes intention to get to the finish line. Do you think we just woke up one day and decided, oh, there's a world championship next week, let's go and compete? No. To prepare for this world championship, it took us 4 months. And that 4 months, prior to that, we were already rowing. We were already athletes. And in that 4 months, we trained from Monday to Friday, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. in Manila Bay, because we had our day job. The first month, we didn't even hit the water. We just did a lot of cardio, running around and push-ups and all that. I was very frustrated with our coach. I said, Coach, we should hit the water and all that. He said, no, we got to build up your stamina, baby steps. Right? Priorities. And I also remember when we were training one time, since I was a steers person, my job is to dock the boat. Every time we train, I docked it. So after I got off the boat, there's a big nail that I stepped on. Literally went through my foot. Took me to ER. They took care of it. It was painful. And then there's another part where we were training. We had our new boat, our team boat. And I'm like, man, this is fiberglass. It's great. And I can never forget what the coach told me. He said, you know, Ducks, while we have a nice boat, great boat, lightweight and all that, it's not about the boat. It's about the destination. Always keep your eye on the destination. You got to get there faster, better, sooner than everybody else. The boat just helps us get there. After all that hard work, yeah, we won second, which is good. It's not about SharePoint. It's about the destination. So with that, thank you. And hopefully, again, you found a lot of value. If you're interested to learn more and potentially have me help you guys to jumpstart your sustainable adoption program, let me know. There's my contact info. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Yeah. So questions, thoughts, ideas? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I work at a consulting firm, and some of the things you said are dead on right, because I just recently took over a client where someone wanted to use kind of a developer, programmer mindset, and he wanted just to sit down, like, what can I make for you, what can I program for you, and he didn't even talk about metadata, they didn't understand, like, the value of SharePoint. And so I went in there and I kind of just did what you said to do. And now I've got meetings scheduled tomorrow and Friday.
Good.
And now I've got ideas for what you just said, though, and how to do the requirements. Like, what are your pain points? Let's talk about those first. Show me that.
So before you go to the meeting tonight, just go to online, go to my blog.
Yeah.
I have a whole presentation on developing requirements. And just listen to that.
What's your
Meetdocs.com. Meetdocs.com. And there's actually video in some spreadsheets or whatever. And I'll send you the invoice next week.
Can't promise I'll pay it.
No, just kidding. But you're dead on right. Huh?
Yeah.
Other questions? Good. All right, so hopefully it was beneficial, and like I said, keep in touch, don't be a stranger. I'll send all this to you. And I recorded this whole presentation, so you get a video copy of this. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.